Today's episode is sponsored by Rootstock, offering one native platform with a singular customer view to grow your business. Visit them at rootstock.com.
Aerospace and defense manufacturing.
Machines and automation.
Additive manufacturing.
Smart manufacturing.
The global manufacturing economy.
Welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals, powered by SME. From the design screen to the shop floor to final assembly, we drive the conversation about making manufacturing smarter by connecting people who are passionate about manufacturing.
Hello, and welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals. I'm your host, Steve Plum, Editor-in-Chief for SMA Media. I'm joined today by Stu Johnson, Vice President of Product Marketing for Rootstock, which specializes in cloud ERP solutions. Stu has more than 35 years of experience in the manufacturing industry, including 20 on the product marketing side, across a wide range of vertical sectors. Most recently, he's focused on enterprise software systems such as product lifecycle management and manufacturing execution systems. Welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, Steve. I appreciate it.
So, before we get started, could you tell us a little bit more about Rootstock?
Surely. So Rootstock is a manufacturing ERP solution, cloud solution, of course, on the Salesforce platform. We tend to cater mostly to small and increasingly more medium customers, manufacturers, but we've also got some enterprise class product companies who do distribution and things like that.
Right. So in the introduction, I mentioned a few acronyms, ERP, PLM, MES. How does, and of course, smart manufacturing and all the various other acronyms and buzzwords that go along with that, how does ERP and Rootstock in particular fit into this ecosystem?
Well, sure. Let me give you a little more background on acronym. I'll say acronym, quote unquote, four-letter word. I'm really passionate about this smart manufacturing topic because I've actually been in the manufacturing technology space for all of those 35 plus years, CAD, CAM, PLM, MES, ERP, all of that. I've been doing all that before we called them smart. In fact, I was actually a member of MESA, the Manufacturing Execution Solutions Association, and they were sort of instrumental in bringing, let's call it smart manufacturing, but it was the U.S. term for Industry 4.0. And I spell industry with the I-E because those who know the history of it really started in Germany and all that. So I've been doing this for a long time before, like I said, before it was smart. And the biggest problem was customers would look at us and say, well, are we doing dumb manufacturing then if we don't do smart manufacturing, right? So it's been kind of fun. But the big thing I think is, the topic of this session is a smart manufacturing platform, right? And I think the biggest thing is to talk about is the need for a smart manufacturing platform, because sort of smart manufacturing at its core relies on, pulling streams of data from all of those different acronyms, right? Each of those is sort of a silo in and of itself, but it all comes together and they're all creating the same product, right? And so I think that's the sort of key to the acronym world.
Now, there does seem to be some overlap between the various systems and definitely sharing of data, even more so now and will continue to be across equipment, across the plant floor, across multiple facilities as well as multiple companies. How does that integration work?
Well, again, if you go down to the core of smart manufacturing, Industry 4.0, industrial IoT really is what we sort of tactically called it, was, collecting data from everywhere, right? All that data comes together. Well, it all kind of comes together in a common IT stack with, the MES is often part of ERP, could be sort of separate. But the most important discussion is bringing all those streams of data together in a way that they can be consumed and then reused by all the different, the different parts of the business.
And where do we stand currently? Where do most companies? Obviously, there's some larger organizations that may be ahead of the curve, but are companies doing this effectively currently?
Well, that's a great question. Actually, I think, again, the bringing it all together is the hard part, right? We had our technology survey identified that one of the biggest problems people were having was with data silos. I know we, with Rootstock on the Salesforce platform, have been very, very focused on the value of having a common data model, right? A space where all the different enterprise systems, point solutions, unstructured data lakes and things can all come together, because the big IT challenge is volume, volume and veracity of all that data. I think bringing it together on a platform like, say, Salesforce, which is a big one for us because it's also an application platform, versus, say, AWS and Azure and even Google Cloud, where, they're sort of data platforms. And that's how I think many companies, especially the largest enterprises, who are sort of transcend, what the software providers can do on those platforms, but really more and more focused for the mid-market has been this Salesforce approach to bringing it all together, including a sort of the new innovation, if you will, in data is what Salesforce calls a data cloud. I've heard others refer to it as sort of a data fabric. But rather than having to move data from all those various spots, you can connect directly to them. And that gives visibility, right? Visibility from any of the enterprise systems with what they call a zero copy framework. And I think that's been probably the biggest bottleneck for most companies. We know we have all these silos of all this data, but boy, oh boy, how do we consolidate it, right? You can't eliminate silos unless you throw them away. So consolidating them in a common platform, that's really the smartness, I think, of the platform going forward.
A lot to process there. First of all, zero copy framework. What can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. Almost every day when I send somebody a file to review, I send them a link to that file on my OneDrive. Therefore, we can all collaborate on one object. That in essence is what I'm talking about. Imagine now, take your MES data, for example, right? Very, very shop floor, very, very voluminous, lots and lots and lots of data. It doesn't need to be hosted up in the cloud, or at least doesn't have to be hosted in the cloud. Every piece of data moved to the cloud, right? I've got edge devices. I've got edge technology, so I can leverage that information from my cloud ERP, right? Literally just by connecting to it. And that's a big innovate. Well, if innovation's been around for at least 10 years, is be able to link to data rather than move it. Now, of course, building an infrastructure on top of that that can keep that data in context of its original, right? But I want to use that piece of data. I want to use that speeds and feeds from MES to drive our next project, right? Oh, we've done this for the last 5 years. We can do this for the next 5 years, kind of thing. So it's really the linking versus copying.
And that just allows greater collaboration and more efficiency?
And more eyes, right? The more eyes I can have on data, the fewer mistakes that slip through because the right person didn't catch the error. And that's, I think, one of the other big problems with silos of data is usually the person or the group that created that particular silo created it for their particular use case. They may never have thought that that data would be useful for someone else downstream. That was one of the biggest problems when all this stuff hit the fan was, unstructured, uncontextualized data. It's still data. It was important data. We stored it for some reason. In fact, we used to say 99% of all shop floor data just falls on the floor, right? It goes past us and then it's gone. So nowadays we can collect it and keep track of it, again, without burdening a cloud ERP or a cloud anything, where if you're moving all that volumes of data up and down all day long, every day, it's a lot of bandwidth versus just get it to me when I need it.
So I've heard or saw that you refer to it as kind of a traffic cop of sorts for managing all the data and the signals that come into the operating system.
Yeah, this is a big deal for ERP. I've seen statistics that say something like 50% or more of a manufacturer's data is housed and managed in their ERP. But that's a static look at the world. An ERP is really streams of data coming in, quotes and orders and supplier responses, as well as outgoing, advanced shipping notices to customers, again, orders to suppliers, etc. Increasingly, these are streams of data and not individual bits. And so the ERP is really processing data, right? You get an order and you process that data from order to production to delivery, and that is a process. But all of that, and then ERP basically manages and even increasingly directs that process. It's sort of automated. Once you do this, it kicks off the next two steps and send it to the next person, et cetera. So I love the analogy of a traffic cop. If you could draw a picture of a typical manufacturer, and I've seen this on the walls of many companies with the yarn and all the different processes, it's a pretty complex network, like a highway drawing would be.
So you set a pretty good picture in terms of large scale and macro level. Bringing it down to the shop floor more, can you elaborate on the types of signals and how they're driving specific actions, such as shutting down a machine or moving between processes?
Surely. Although let me get to that by starting kind of up at the top, because that's a sort of shop floor discussion. But there's also productivity and streaming at the top floor, right? Where say when sales closes a deal, that looks like revenue. It's a stream of revenue, but all those different revenue streams look like demand to the operations leader, right? They're going to get streams of, okay, this came in today, we got to get this planned and scheduled based on capacity. So they've got to have streams from their capacity from the different machines. You mentioned machines. Well, if I get a IoT signal that says this machine is going to go down in a week or has a risk of going down in a week, and I've got a 1 million piece order planned for that machine, that's a really important signal back to the business that says I should replan anything that was going to that. And, oh, by the way, send a signal off to the manufacturing team, the maintenance team to clean that up. So you can sort of imagine, right? And the impact of any one of those signals, like a machine going down or a disruption in the supply chain, right? Imagine all of the things that were in work when the ship that had all of their raw materials got stuck in the Suez Canal, right? The manufacturer might not get that signal directly. They might get it on the news first until their supplier figures out, which customers are affected by this, and so on. So that's I think a really good example of the signals and their interplay between one another, right?
So obviously that would be a huge catch and a huge benefit. Hopefully that doesn't happen too often.
Well, I'll tell you, Steve, sorry to interrupt you, but interestingly, one of our thought leaders at Salesforce has highlighted I think it was McKinsey, highlighted that we should be expecting a major disruption to the supply chain that will be effective for at least a month every 3.5 years. Now, somebody's math in there, but it's basically just says we better be ready for these kinds of things, because the impact is so great.
So definitely preparing for worst case scenarios and how to handle those.
We really need agility to respond to those things. And at the end of the day, all of that data streaming in and out of your ERP, the most important, when I talk to people at trade show, what's an ERP? It's for visibility and control, right? I want to control the business processes. I want to control that we're not, accidentally making 100 of these or sending it, making unrealistic promises to customers. But the only way we can control it is by having visibility to what is. And, in a cloud ERP world, what is real time. If you go back not too many years, and frankly, many of our customers, even using legacy ERP systems, because they're not in the cloud, they don't have the real time streams. They've got, static data in a database somewhere that they have to go look for versus, cloud ERP, which streams it in front of me, gives me a dashboard, right? Red, yellow, green dashboard. Where am I going to spend my day? Chasing down the reds, right? Just having that information fed to me in a way that as an executive, I can quickly make, visual decisions. That's going to be the future of success for manufacturers, is being able to deal with all of this data, all of these streams, all of the insights that come with those streams. Because like you kind of mentioned, it's a lot.
Right. You mentioned legacy systems and people just maybe not understanding what ERP is and capabilities. But what are some of the other misconceptions about ERP?
Well, I don't know if there's misconceptions as much as the challenges of the complexity, right? Let's face it, replacing an ERP is the best analogy is a heart transplant, right? You don't get a heart transplant because you want one. You get one because you need one. And that's really what's driving manufacturers to go in and increasingly invest, especially in cloud technologies. But the level of complexity and frankly, some of the challenges that I see, especially with small to mid-market customers, is they design in their own complexity that's unnecessary. They grew up from a garage shop or whatever it was into where they're now at a place of, let's say, 20, 30 million, and they can't scale on their manual systems. But they impose their way of doing things on the software. It's irrespective of whether that's a best practice or not. So that's actually one of the most important things I would highlight for companies to watch is, you don't need to put in all this complexity because the systems can do it so much easier for you, right? Managing and moving workflows and things, it is very, very easy to configure now in an ERP. We used to talk about customization was a 4-letter word. Now our systems can adapt to what I customize this year will be useful next year, the next release, and the next release. So we no longer have that restriction. But I think the big thing is the big negative connotation of ERP is the complexity. It's just a manufacturing business is complex, and so you need a system that can manage it.
So how do companies know if they are making it overly complex?
It's you got to trust your vendors. You got to trust, and increasingly with technology moving as fast as it is, you really need to be able to trust your ERP company and the services they provide and the partners and the ecosystem that surrounds it. That's I think the biggest thing.
Obviously, there's a people side to this as well, especially in today's environment where we have a workforce shortage, a skills gap, people leaving the industry that have a lot of institutional knowledge. How does ERP fit into help? First of all, how do you train the people on how to best optimize and use ERP, and how do they fit into the system?
Yeah, it's it's been a challenge. It's been highlighted in the last recent years, but it's been going on for manufacturing since a decade before COVID, and I think the key thing is, again, that traffic cop is telling you where to go. So if you're processing a sales order or you're executing a work order, you want your system to tell you the next best action, or once you push the button, here's what we at our business do. We send a copy off to this person, we move it to the next operation, whatever. So I think the big thing about how the people can leverage this technology is to make it much easier, tailor the user experience so that, a shop floor worker isn't looking at pages and pages or tabs of an ERP. They just have the push button, complete, quality problem, which quality, that kind of stuff. So again, it's on us as software providers to make it easier to learn and use. I know in our case, as is fairly typical, any button in the ERP has an information button that says, here's what this button does, here's what you should do, and increasingly having solutions that can actually open up a training session. Oh, you know what? I've been on vacation for 2 weeks. I forgot how to do that. So make it easy for me to do this. I keep one of these on my desk. That was easy. To me, that is our goal as manufacturers, is to create the easy button for doing your job. Not, the ERP is just the mechanism. Your job is the thing. And I think that's where we're seeing more and more people growing from the, just monkey picks and pick things up and put things down jobs to actually being knowledge workers, leveraging the technology to move the flow of data and product through the business. And that is a lot more similar to the way people are growing up, with their phone attached to their hand, and anything they want to do is digital. Their communication is very collaborative. So we've been really focusing on trying to not only make it easy to learn and use, but make it consistent with the way people use other things, just apps and things, right? So the more we can do to train and educate our workers on how to use all this new technology, the better we can keep the people we have, right? Because there aren't a lot of people to fill in their spots if they move on. And I do think the productivity gain of leveraging these tools is going to allow manufacturers to grow without adding more workers, at the same pace that they have in the past. Because the traffic cop, the data management, the visibility, it's all there, and the complexity is managed by the software, not by the human. Right? That's, I think, to me, the biggest move forward is these systems have to put the human at the center of the diagram and make the human more productive.
So can you share any success stories or case studies of examples of how some of the customers you've seen put this into practice and succeed?
Sure. In fact, one of our customers, Boston Dynamics, they make the dancing robots you've probably seen all over the internet. They, just by automating their cash order to cash process, right? They have streamlined it to remove 60% of the time. And then the flip side of that is another customer, Architectural Fabrication, who used to have, a single worker manage, X number of projects. With this technology, they've been able to increase the number of projects one project manager works on by, 150%. So it's pretty dramatic enablement of people and processes. And I will tell you, both of those companies did not come in with, here's how we've always done it. Interestingly, Boston Dynamics used to be a government contractor. Imagine forcing a commercial business to run its processes like a government contractor, right? So they just basically started from scratch, jumped on Rootstock, added in a bunch of other Salesforce things, but they've been able to grow at a tremendous rate and an amazing number of people in a very short time by leveraging these technologies.
So you mentioned the importance of obviously moving from a legacy system to a more advanced ERP and just looking for ways to continuously improve the business. So what are some of the latest and greatest advancements, and what's next, and how do you use things like AI to improve ERP?
Yeah, this, we both knew this question was coming, right? I've been keeping AI giving it the Heisman for the last sort of 10 years, right? We've all used AI behind the scenes. We didn't even know it. It's when it became visible to do things like IoT and analyze all that data from the machine and figure out when it's going to go down. The key to all of that is manufacturers have traditionally been resistant to AI or anything new, any new trend. But in our manufacturing technology report, it was very, very clear that they're seeing the value and the benefit. They're adopting AI at a really surprising rate for me, having been in this industry. You know, we used to joke all manufacturers are from Missouri, right? They're the show me state. They want to wait to see if it's going to happen. And you just can't do that anymore. It's just coming too fast and furious. But at the same time, there's a lot of hype around things like generative AI, for example. Great, help me write emails and send things like that. But in an ERP scenario, the predictive nature of AI is way more valuable, right? Because of this vast amount of data, humans can't reconcile, can't see the trends or the patterns. AI will help us do that. One of the things we're really working on is AI that matters to manufacturers. So in the planning process, for example, right? Planning is an inherently predictive exercise. And today, manufacturers rely on gut feeling experience and these people that have been doing it for years and years. Well, the workforce is graying, and the brain drain is a real thing. And so leveraging AI to give us a little more insight, and I call it foresight, into what might happen based on my plan, and then give me, frankly, a continuously calculated plan. MRP, for example, material requisition planning, is to go out and order what we think we need for the orders that we've got, the orders that we might get, the blah, blah, blah. And so if I added in the orders we always get that we didn't know yet, right? Predictively, we know seasonality or, a promotion or what have you. Help me predict what we actually need versus what I have always ordered in the past. We see that as the sort of next churn of the crank in all this. In fact, we're working on something called a decisioning platform, right? Imagine us being able to make more and more of the decisions that, the everyday decisions, thousands of decisions. Let the software make the mundane decisions and leave it for the human to make the smart manufacturing decisions, to use the term, and get righter more often, because, AI doesn't have judgment built in yet. That's what humans are good at. And that's why humans still need to be in the center of the equation and being the sort of choreographer, or maybe it's the traffic cop, right? Having a human in the center, directing the traffic that suits their job or helps them do their job.
We talked about helping with the mundane and with the predictive abilities of AI. Is there also potential to use it for what you started out the conversation about on the major disruptions and how to help manage those?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. And in fact, that is core to our strategy. One of the things, we call it the signal chain. I talked about all these signals in and out. And the demand chain, the demand signals are fairly well established. We know where demand's coming from. It's increasingly digital. It's coming from e-commerce sites and marketplaces and all this stuff, and it streams into the business. We know how to handle that. You then have demand. You have to manage your capacity to deliver that demand or any of the demand that you expect to have. And that we talked about, having telemetry on your shop floor for IoT to help you kind of keep track of that. The missing link to this whole thing, Steve, is that the supply chain is still very physical. We call it bits versus boxes, right? Demand coming in as bits, but the supply comes in as boxes. And so we don't have as many of the sort of signals that signal from the ship getting stuck in the Suez Canal may have. There are specific systems out there that are tracking the supplier network, but that's the next holy grail for us, is to connect into that so that our systems, our traffic cop knows that there's a bottleneck on the road, up the street. Tell me that sooner than later so that I can make a new buy, a different buy, maybe something, here on our shore, et cetera. But that right there is the sticky wicket in the equation, in my opinion.
That's interesting times, that's for sure. Like you said, it's only a matter of time before another major disruption comes. We just don't know what it is, but the people that are able to prepare and plan for such things will be in a much better position.
Again, it all comes back to agility. And the more you can connect to these streams of information that are important to your business in real time, it's almost as simple as that. But, of course, overlaid onto an extremely complex business problem.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Very interesting conversation, Stu. Look forward to talking more in the future. Appreciate you taking the time. And if listeners want to learn more about Rootstock, where should they go?
Well, thanks for having me. I could chat about this all day long. But please visit us at rootstock.com. Spell it like it sounds. And I would encourage you to download. So right on our landing page is our latest State of Manufacturing Technology survey. We've done this 2 years in a row now. And I'll tell you what, the most interesting part is the change from last year to this year. Things don't move fast in manufacturing, but they're moving fast now. And the comparisons between 23 and 24, I think, will really stimulate a lot of interest from your viewers.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see and compare how things have changed, especially year to year, and as you move forward in coming years, how that's is affected. But to learn more about the latest manufacturing trends and hear more of our podcasts, visit advancedmanufacturing.org.